the mainstream media's coverage of climate change has become a contentious issue, with some arguing that it is being used to oppress Christians. While this claim may seem far-fetched, it is essential to examine the ways in which the media's narrative on climate change may be impacting Christian communities. The media's portrayal of climate change as a solely scientific issue, devoid of moral or spiritual implications, can be seen as dismissive of Christian perspectives on the environment. Many Christians believe that the Bible teaches stewardship of the earth and care for creation, and that climate change is a moral and spiritual issue, not just a scientific one. However, the mainstream media often ignores or marginalizes these perspectives, instead focusing on the views of scientists and politicians. This can create a sense of exclusion and oppression among Christians who feel that their values and beliefs are being dismissed or ridiculed. Furthermore, the media's emphasis on individual actions to combat climate change, such as reducing carbon footprints and using public transportation, can be seen as a form of moralizing that perpetuates guilt and shame. Christians who are taught to rely on faith in God's sovereignty may feel that this emphasis on individual action is at odds with their beliefs. The media's constant barrage of dire warnings and apocalyptic predictions about climate change can also create a sense of hopelessness and despair, which can be particularly problematic for Christians who are taught to trust in God's providence and sovereignty. Additionally, the media's coverage of climate change often perpetuates a narrative that pits science against faith, with Christians being portrayed as anti-science or ignorant of scientific facts. This narrative is not only misleading, but also damaging, as it creates a false dichotomy between science and faith. Many Christians are deeply committed to scientific inquiry and discovery, and see no conflict between their faith and the scientific method. However, the media's portrayal of Christians as anti-science can create a sense of stigma and marginalization, making it more difficult for Christians to engage in constructive dialogue about climate change. The media's obsession with climate change has also led to the exclusion of other important issues that affect Christian communities, such as poverty, inequality, and social justice. While climate change is undoubtedly an important issue, it is not the only issue that affects Christian communities, and the media's singular focus on this issue can create a sense of imbalance and neglect. Christians who are concerned about issues such as poverty, hunger, and human trafficking may feel that the media's coverage of climate change is distracting from these more pressing concerns. Moreover, the media's coverage of climate change has been accompanied by a rise in eco-theology, which often blurs the lines between science, spirituality, and politics. Eco-theology, which emphasizes the sacredness of the earth and the interconnectedness of all living things, can be seen as a form of pagan spirituality that is at odds with Christian teachings. While some Christians may be drawn to eco-theology, others may see it as a threat to their faith and values. The media's promotion of eco-theology as a solution to climate change can create a sense of unease and discomfort among Christians, who may feel that their faith is being co-opted or superseded by a new form of spirituality. In conclusion, the mainstream media's coverage of climate change can be seen as a form of oppression against Christians who feel that their perspectives and values are being marginalized or dismissed. The media's emphasis on individual action, science vs. faith narrative, and exclusion of other important issues can create a sense of exclusion and despair among Christians. Moreover, the rise of eco-theology and the media's promotion of it as a solution to climate change can be seen as a threat to Christian teachings and values. It is essential for the media to engage in more nuanced and inclusive coverage of climate change, one that takes into account the diverse perspectives and values of Christian communities. By doing so, the media can create a more constructive and respectful dialogue about climate change, one that acknowledges the complexity and richness of Christian thought and practice.